following is my conversation with Alessandro Basso. Alessandro is the Chief Executive Officer at StarDue Group. StarDue is the parent company of the brands Basso Bikes and Cougan factory mountain bikes. Alessandro comes from a family of bike enthusiasts and entrepreneurs in the cycling industry. Alessandro's father and uncle founded Basso Bikes in 1977, and his mother's family is responsible for creating the mega motorcycle protection brand Alpine Stars. I spoke with Alessandro about his path from professional mountain bike racer to CEO of one of Italy's last remaining family-owned bike brands. Alessandro Basso, thank you very much for coming on today. It's really nice to have you on. I'm excited to talk about your brand, your family's brands, and Basso Bikes. So thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's cool to be here. Thank you very much.
So yeah, like we talked about, I sent you over some questions. So maybe if we want to get started, I know Basso is, the brand is growing. There's lots of interesting things that we can talk about. You and your brother work in the company. Your parents, I believe, started the company, but we'll get into that. So maybe, I don't know, should we just start? You can tell me a little bit about your background and just kind of who you are, where you're from. And then after that, maybe we can dive into how you got interested in the cycling world.
Sure. Yeah, so I grew up always passionate into sports. As you said, my mom and my dad founded what were two different companies back in the day. But having two parents being highly involved in sports, in cycling and various declination of cycling and in motorsports, I got into cycling quite early through BMX, but then I was interested in other stuff. My kind of big passion was always motorsport and motocross, in being specific. And then when I was 15, 16, I started racing downhill. That for me at the time was kind of the closest thing I could do, but with a bicycle. That was kind of getting into what the business was doing. And I had a decent career as a downhill mountain biker. I raced for the Italian national team. I raced a few World Cups, a lot of national champs and stuff. And it was a super cool experience, being able to travel, being able to race and being able to be around, cool people and very passionate. And for me, I knew it was not going to be my sport. I went on getting into university. I studied mechanical engineering, and I have a degree in carbon fiber composites and composites in general. So that was something that, being a mechanical engineer, I was always super keen on getting into, and that ultimately really helped me in my working career. So yeah, flash forward some years now, I'm the CEO of StarDue Group. So that's a bit of how I got here.
So where are you from originally?
I'm from Bassano del Grappa, a town of, now I think it's around 70,000 inhabitants in northeast Italy. And the company, my dad's company, Basso, was born in Vicenza, and my mom's company was born in Asolo. So kind of Bassano del Grappa was let's say a midway between their two companies, and that's where I grew up.
So your dad started Basso, and your mom, what was her company?
So my mom and my mom's family was involved in motorsport first. My mom's company at the beginning was Alpine Stars. And at one point, when basically she took over the distribution of Alpine Stars bicycles for Italy, and that is when StarDue came along. So StarDue is officially the second star after Alpine Stars. Just going back, my grandfather is the founder of Alpine Stars from my mom's side. So that's when StarDue Group started, and my mom started distributing Alpine Stars bikes first, and then Alpine Stars stopped doing bikes, and she took over, I think it was GT after that. And then after GT came Intense and some other minor brands. And Cougan came into the equation when basically she wanted to find a brand that she could grow distribution into Europe and then ultimately take over. And that's when, roughly, I think 20 years ago, she started distributing Cougan. And 15 years ago, she took over the brand, and that's when it came into kind of the universe of StarDue. And bouncing off to my dad's side, his family has a big history in cycling, having the older brother of the three, Marino Basso, world champion in 1972 in Gap, and a very strong racer for the time. And kind of Marino was the racer and my dad was the mechanic. And my dad is the youngest of three brothers. The two younger brothers actually at the very beginning started Basso, but then the middle one left and my father remained with Basso. So they go to what at the time was Köln, Messe in Germany, and they meet up. And so for some time, they were married, but they had two different bike companies, which is kind of a joke. One doing road bikes and one, distributing mainly mountain bikes. And then, roughly, I think 15 years ago, when my mom took over Cougan 100%, they merged the two companies, and that's where StarDue Group was born as we know it now. So with Basso and Cougan as the two brands.
Okay, so I got lots of questions. So Alpine, your grandfather started Alpine Stars.
Yes.
And do you still have ownership in that company, or did they liquidate the position?
No, my uncle is the president of that company, as he's running this company super successfully, and my mom took over the bike side of what was Alpine Stars bicycles at the beginning.
Okay. And your dad started, so Basso started with your dad and his brothers, and then you said that there was a part of the Basso which did mountain bikes and a part that did road, and then your dad took the road piece and matched it together with Cougan, which Cougan was a brand that your mom had purchased.
Yes, correct. So my mom had purchased, she had distributed this brand from the US. It was born in Chicago and was a super small brand, but she came across this brand and started right away developing product for the European market. And then ultimately she purchased the brand and took it as a inside brand. So it was not a distribution anymore. It was a proprietary brand. And my dad with Basso had a very solid offering for road, a very small offering for mountain bikes. We still have a couple of Basso mountain bikes, which were more kind of a trial and error thing, but. In the end, kind of the two companies merged, and so Basso went on doing the drop bar stuff, and Cougan went on doing the flat bar stuff.
So tell me about
it this way.
Can you tell me about your parents? How did they meet? Like, was it like, did they meet at like trade shows, or like was it like this? Two entrepreneurs that kind of, I don't know. I'm just curious to understand how that happened.
Yeah, so they met at what. I'm not sure actually if it was called Eurobike at the time, but it was this trade show in the very north of Germany in Cologne, where it was, I think, the predecessor of Eurobike, and they met at that trade show. And I don't know the history. I'm sorry, I don't know the history being specific, but I know they met there, and that's when things started coming together. As I said, for a number of years, they still had two different companies, and really one was based in Vicenza and the other one was based in Asolo. But at one point, I think they found it reasonable to kind of merge and join forces.
And so is your mom involved in Alpine Stars at all?
No, she's not involved. She's involved in StarDue Group as the CFO of the company. And she left Alpine Stars many years ago.
Okay. But still, you guys, I'm assuming you're still in contact with your uncle and everything. And
we were at lunch on Sunday. So
okay. So you decided, okay, so like pedigree, bicycling pedigree, you just don't get more than that. So then you decided to start racing. You said that you kind of had an idea that maybe racing wasn't going to be anything like a career or anything like that. So you decided to study mechanical engineering. Where did you study?
I studied in Padova, which
Great.
was a great university, and for me it was also easy because at that time, I wasn't gonna be world champion, but I was training every day, twice a day, and it was easy for me to study in Padova because it was close to my hometown, just 45 minutes by train, and so it was quite convenient to study there.
And you decided to study carbon fiber, so you sort of had an idea like that you wanted to be able to use your studies. Like, did you always like want to be involved with the family business, do you think?
That's a good question. I don't know. So the carbon fiber kind of and the composite thing came along after the third year of university when we had to choose, which direction we wanted to take. As you know, when you study mechanical engineering, you always, as a boy, you always end up there because you love motorsports and you dream about being, a Ferrari engineer in Formula One. And then the first day you get into the school, you learn that for the next 2 years you're going to study math and physics, which has nothing to do with the sexy part of being an engineer. So that for me was something that I liked. I liked the kind of the approach that engineering has, and that's what kind of got me into that university. And then I was fascinated by carbon fiber materials and the uses that it could have and the development that it could have, and what the company was doing with it for sure helped because, when you are in a family business, you're not under a payroll until you really start, but the summers you're going to be working in the family company, and when there's necessity to help, you're gonna come in. So I took the advantage of that segment of composites to kind of study it, and why not? Maybe I didn't have, my ideas weren't super clear at the moment, but for sure it was something that I was thinking about.
Okay. So you were growing up, your parents, I'm assuming, were bringing you in the office pretty often. Did you enjoy that, or was that something that was sort of difficult for you? Maybe you wanted to do other things. I mean, how did you see that as a kid? The family business, what was that like?
No, I mean, it was fun. I had bicycles and motorcycles at the office every day, and it was super fun. Yeah, sometimes you want to be somewhere else in the summer, but I wasn't slaved into the production. I was rolling in spontaneously. So no, I really enjoyed it, actually, being around, and it helps me now that I kind of know every single detail of what's going on in the company and every single process of how things are done. I think I'm still the fastest inner tube changer in the company. We do this once a year, and last year I won, so I don't know, maybe there's a young kid that came in now, but I can still do it quite quick.
And so it sounds like you went to college. I know Asolo, Basso, that's sort of it's sort of the heart of cycling in terms of like, there's a lot of businesses out there. There's, Castelli, and there's Campagnolos out there, tons and tons and tons of companies, shoe brands after shoe brands after shoe brands. Yeah. So you were sort of in that area. You started studying. So after you finished your studies, what did you end up doing?
So I did a couple of internships in like local production companies. And then I got hired by this carbon fiber manufacturing company that was producing mostly for motorsport. And I ended up working there for 1.5 years as kind of a junior engineer, backing up what the main engineering team was doing. And then I started the last 6 months I was there. I was hands-on the layup part of the engineering of a carbon fiber composite material, but it was nice because motorsport is always small production, very quick, and quite unpredictable. So it was nice for me as an engineer. It's super difficult for a company to be sustainable doing carbon fiber parts for motorsport, but for me working there was super cool.
Why do you say it's not sustainable?
No, I don't know. From a business perspective, we were doing the rear swing arms for Ducati, for example, at the time when Casey Stoner was racing on it. And if he crashed, on a Monday, you would have an order for a new swing arm that, I don't know, was $50K in cost. If he didn't crash for a month, and they didn't bring any new development, you had no orders. So it was very difficult to program.
It was super high
Super
performance.
Super high performance. And for me, it was really an awesome school, and I learned really a lot on top of what I studied in university.
And so after you did this experience, this was, I'm assuming it was kind of a unique niche carbon fiber development company. Then did you at that point decide to then come back to the family business?
So after that, it was a moment that my dad asked me to enter the company, and it was a moment that the company was changing. He needed some help. So I said, why not? I liked my role as an engineer, but I think there was an opportunity there, and it was kind of locking in when I stopped racing downhill. When I was working, I was racing Enduro World Series a bit, but I was tired of racing. I want to really try to focus on my career. So I entered the company. It's 2023, I think 7 years ago, as a sales manager for the German market. So quite a change in perspective, but it was at the time and is still now the biggest market for Basso. And so the company needed somebody to foresee that market. It had a sales manager in place there, but they needed a connection with the company. And so that's where I started, in there.
So Germany, as probably a lot of people know, maybe some don't, but Germany for cycling is incredibly important for a brand. So it's a huge market. It's the biggest market by far. So did you have to learn German? What was your experience doing that? Because that must have been kind of a baptism by fire.
Yeah. So I studied German in school, and then I kind of got really into it. I didn't study German at that time. I have been studying German now that we have a German headquarter and we have kind of full-on operations there. So English and kind of battling with what I learned at school, because it's much easier if you can speak German, although everybody speaks a decent level of English. But it's a big market. It's a huge country. So I was driving so many kilometers on the highway, but it was, steep learning curve, but definitely a great one.
So what's it take to sell into a German retailer as a bike brand?
So for Basso, it's the easiest country that we approach for, I think, two main reasons. One, because it's the first market where the brand entered, because very, very long story short, the middle brother of the company, he was studying, I don't know how you say it, it's like studying to be a priest or the university for the church university in Germany.
Yeah, I should know this. It's the seminary.
The seminary, correct. So he was in seminary, and he never ended up being a priest. He's doing something totally different, but his mom sent him over to Germany to become one of those. And in his free time, my dad was welding the frames at 16, 17 years old in Vicenza, and Renato was selling the frames in Germany. So really, since 50 plus years, we have been in that market. And if you travel to a German bike shop, there's really a lot of Basso steel frames hanging on the wall as a memorabilia. So, presence in the market is one. The second thing is that I think the German market and the German customer is a very well educated customer and a very technical customer. So just like with German cars, they are fine with spending, a premium price for a product, but they want to make sure that they get a high level of technicality, a high level product in return. And this is, I think, a value that Basso can deliver quite well. And so that's why I think selling in Germany is a bit easier than in other countries in Europe, at least.
So German customers, like, you have some reputation already, as you said.
Yeah.
So I guess we're getting into, one of your, I guess, the qualities that Basso considers part of your mission is to have products that are very technical, and would you say on the higher end?
Yeah, I mean, what we try to do is really, even, on a marketing perspective, having chosen not to be in a world tour team, we try to position our product, explaining the Italian production, explaining the technology, explaining the process, really getting, transferring a deep knowledge to our customers of our product and having them choose our product because they really know, how it's made, who makes it, what's the technology behind it, why is this component developed in a way. So I think certain markets are more reactive to this than others, but definitely, Germany is one of those.
And so you're in the German market. It feels like the brand had some momentum. So you were just trying to learn the business, continue to help grow the business in Germany. It sounds like it has grown. You have a headquarters there now. It's directly owned subsidiary in Germany now.
Yeah. So basically, since the time that I started, then I started expanding a bit in sales, and I ended up being the sales manager for the company. And then it was a time when the company was having really a lot of evolution. This was 3-4 years ago, and I had decided before COVID. Yeah.
Okay.
So the company really started growing, I think 5-6 years ago, and I decided and kind of it was kind of the next step was to become a CEO, and I decided to enter an MBA program, which lasted for 2 years. And basically, once that was done, I took over as a CEO, and kind of the first thing I wanted to do is secure our biggest market, because we had a distributor over there that was solely distributing Basso, and the conditions was kind of a very small company.
Delicate.
Yeah, the conditions were delicate, so we took, in agreement with the previous owner of the distribution, we took over that company and basically established our headquarters just north of Munich in Nuremberg, which works as a logistical center, after sales service, general headquarters for the German and Austrian markets.
So Germany is incredibly strategic for your brand.
Yeah, definitely.
And so the growth, it sounds like the growth came from innovation. The growth came from, it sounds like you guys were successful through investing in Germany, investing in the market. I mean, what else would you, because I guess I know that you guys have some, and we can get into the specifics, but I know that the brand has, you've invested a lot into the innovation. It sounds like the gravel has been something that you guys gravitated to early. And I guess, can you tell us a little bit about some of the successes that kind of brought you to where you guys are today?
Yeah, well, I think the very first point is the Italian production, which was, really, we have been producing in Italy for a very long time. Since basically the beginning, my father was a welder and he was welding frames in his garage. And the evolution that the company has had was always to try and keep as much production as possible. So in this moment, we have a carbon fiber production in Vicenza, we have a painting facility in Vicenza, and we have an assembly line from close to Bassano, where I'm talking at the moment. This production has always been kind of the core of the company, and that's why I think the product can go to market quite fast. And you mentioned gravel. We were very fast in bringing the first edition of the Palta to the market. And that's why I think we can make also product that has kind of a special touch and a special feeling. We are investing even more in the Italian production. In June, we will start building a new carbon fiber production in our headquarters here in close to Bassano, and that will really bring us on the right scale of producing carbon frames in Italy. And going together, everything is going to follow that numbers from the painting facility to the assembly line. So I think for sure, producing in Italy and being able to deliver real made in Italy product around the world is one strong point of our success. But I think the main point was, in my personal opinion, was understanding that, and I say this with huge respect to all of the industry, but I think the Italian bike industry lost a very important train several years ago when, 30 years ago, if you wanted to buy a road bike, it had to be an Italian road bike. There was nothing else. And fast forward 15 years, not much. There is 2 American brands that are totally dominating the market, and the Italians were still there trying to see, who was the strongest between the Italians. So what we really try to do with Basso and Cougan and working as a group together is, to try and raise the brands to a more global scale. Really try to forget, to keep the positive things of being Italian, but to forget all that it was kind of all the heritage that is dragging you to be a bit maybe conservative, but I would say also arrogant, when you're saying buy me because I'm Italian. The customer does not, I think like this and does not choose like this. So from my point of view, we really try to kind of raise the level of the brand to a more global level. And ultimately, what we try to do is to try and sell products to the customers that were my age, and not, having somebody buy an ex-American brand, buy 4 bikes until when he's in his 45s, 50, he has a good amount that he can spend on a bike, and then he's finally going to buy his dream Italian road bike. So that's, I think, the change was what has brought us, and that's why I think we were also very reactive when we sensed that gravel could be an option. But in the end, when we saw the first gravel bikes, we said, this is cool, we want to ride it. And that's when we jumped on kind of the gravel opportunity.
This is great that we kind of got to the point where you and your family had seen some opportunity with the production in Italy. It was something that you guys had always sort of invested in. And I'm assuming that your facilities were a huge advantage during COVID. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, really it was a bad moment for the world, but after things kind of got better, we saw a huge clog in the let's say the upstream part of the supply chain. And there was really a moment that I really think, I don't have the way to prove it, but I really think that there was a moment that we were one of the very few companies in Europe that had frames available, because we took over so much market share in that moment, and we saw it from our numbers. We tried to really privilege our customer base, but what we could, we opened to new customers, and it was a huge benefit for us, because it's customers and dealers that we're still serving at the moment, and that we were able to capitalize in that occasion. I tell you a funny story, and this is so Italian. When things opened up, and there was a moment that kind of it was not really sure if you could open or not. I was at home and I spoke to the different facility managers, and I said, look, you have to speak with the employees, and in the end they need to make the call if they want to come back and work, or if they want to wait one more month. And I was ready to wait 2-3 days for this response, but like after 5 hours, they're all they cannot stand staying home with their wives or with their husbands anymore. They just want to come back to work. And in 2 days, really, we had the production back up running, which was funny for me.
That's great. So that would have been like March of 2020 when everything was locked down.
Yeah.
And Italy was just getting hammered with the virus. So you guys were very interesting, in a good position to take advantage of the supply chain issues that COVID presented. So you guys were able to gain some market share. Were you at that time, were you still the sales manager, or did you then take over the CEO role during that time?
I took over the CEO role right basically after COVID. I was, foreseeing more and more. I think you don't take over as a CEO. For us, it was kind of a gradual development, but I took over right after COVID. It was a moment where I could basically leave my role as a sales manager to another colleague. And that's when I was really able to take over the new role.
And what was that like? I mean, that's a big responsibility. How has that been going?
It's different, starting as an engineer and going into sales. And in the end, I like product. I like being in touch with people. As a CEO, you're much more into the numbers side. You're much more involved into the finance. The way the company is structured is really as, me being the CEO, not being the owner of the company, because I'm not, my parents are. So the company is organized with 6 managers that run the company on the day-to-day, and I kind of relate to them. It's a fun job. It was definitely more fun a year ago. It's a bit of a pain this year. We all know the industry is not in the greatest shape, but nevertheless, we have, I think, some cool projects coming up. This year, we're still able to grow in a market that is decreasing, so we're still doing quite well. Sometimes I wish I could go back and do more engineering stuff, but all in all, I'm still quite involved in the product, and when it comes to finalizing stuff, I'm in. So I like it. I don't see myself doing this forever, because I think in a world that is changing a lot, you need to be really on top of things. I'm young, but I think you really need to have the right drive, and you really need to anticipate also what is going on, and it takes a lot. So for the moment, I'm enjoying it. For the future, we will see what comes up.
And how are they involved? You said your mom is the CFO.
Yes. So my mom is Lucia Mazzaroli, is the CFO. My dad, he's retired now. He comes in the company as a consultant when there is a new product development. For example, he was super involved in the development of the new Diamante, the lightest frame we've ever produced, because he has, imagine 50 years of building bikes. He has an incredible experience. He can tell from far away when a bike is not gonna ride as we want, or he can tell from really a mile away when a guy has his saddle is 2 centimeters higher than what it should be. So we ask him to come in when really there is the beginning phases of product developments. He works with our engineers and designers and brings, we don't pay him enough for the amount of knowledge that he's bringing, for sure.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess in a family, because it's a family-owned company, your brother works, Leonardo, on the marketing side of things. So tell us a little bit more about, what it's like having, so much family around. Is it, I don't know. Are you able to communicate in a more effective way? What are some of the pros and cons of working in a family-owned company, do you think? Yeah,
so we have, I think, a bit of a unique setup, because so we, first of all, are a private company. We are one of the very, very few companies of let's say, a reasonable size in the producing bikes that is still private. I think COVID really had a huge entry of investment funds, of family offices. So one thing is being a private company, and there's pros and cons to that. The other thing is being private and being family owned and working with your family. I think, for me, the way we have organized the company is really that there is a management that is running the company, that today it's me as a CEO, tomorrow it could be somebody else, or tomorrow it could be somebody else as a CFO. But we really try to protect what the future of the company was and have the managers be on top of it. So working with family members, I think inside the company they are managers in the end, and we relate to ourselves as managers, as co-workers. Of course, when we go and have dinner together, we still speak about business, but in the end, I don't see it very different from another company that is managed by a third-party CEO and with a management team behind it. That's at least for me the right way to do it, because if not, it's very hard to grow the company if the company is always tied to the family members sticking and deciding to every single detail to what is happening. You kind of raise the right people, and in the end, the way I see it, the company is owned by the family, but as much as it's owned by every single person inside the company, because the amount of professionalism, the amount of development that these managers, but also the people behind, are bringing every day to the company is not second to the one that myself or Leonardo, my brother, or Lucia, my mother, are bringing.
So can you just give maybe some insight about what it takes to be a successful Italian company today? I know we talked a little bit about, being the challenges of growing an Italian company, but can you just tell me what you've learned and what you think it's going to take for these, maybe speak to just all of the Italian companies that are fighting to be relevant in the modern marketplace?
Well, I appreciate you saying that we're successful, and I'm happy. I take this as a compliment. I think we have just started, trying to develop the plan that we have and try to develop what is coming up. I think my vision is to always be, extremely humble to what the market is showing and to what the customers are needing. You really need to listen, and you really need to do everything for the customer. And I know it seems like an MBA quote, but really the customer in the end is true. What is going to decide who is successful or not your heritage, not who's in the company, not the numbers. The customer is going to decide. So we really try to focus as a company. We have this mission in the company that we really want to do everything to deliver the best riding experience for our customers. So every new project we embrace, every a decision to produce in a way or another way, we do want to do it for the riding experience, and we really try to put the customer and his needs in front of every single decision that we do. So I think this is the first key thing that every company should try and strive for, but really have it always far in front of you and try to run after. Yeah, I don't know, from my point of view, I think success is really also bringing passionate people, but bringing professional people inside the business. And again, it seems like a quote that's already heard, but it's the people that make the company. As I said, the management team we have is incredible, and I have full trust in them, and really it's them making the biggest decisions. I sometimes cut a yes or a no, but the people are what really make the difference. And yeah, I prefer to have I really try to empower the people, no matter what their age is, no matter what their background is. If somebody is of value, I always say that our company is never going to become like the Italian ministry, that you're at that role because you've been in the ministry for so long that you cannot be moved. So we really have a competitive also scenario inside the company that I think is what is helping the people to grow, but also helping the company to grow.
So one thing that I've learned that in leadership, typically in leadership, it's the mission, it's your values that sort of make what the company is about. So you said the values are, putting the people first. What are some of your other personal, like you personally as a leader, what are some of your core values that you can maybe talk about?
That's a hard question. I think people first, 100%. I really try to bring in the company is, don't take no for an answer, or don't always try and find a solution, because I think especially this year the market is so challenging, and the customer expects so much more, when the market is challenging. If you are not ready to find solutions, and if you don't have also the power to go and find solutions, in the end you're just gonna say, okay, I'll sit and wait until things get better. And then for me, the kind of a value that I really try to bring to the people that I have myself is, always keep learning. You never, again, it seems like a done quote, but I do it on myself. I'm learning German at the moment. I keep on trying to develop my engineering studies. I think the world is evolving so fast that you cannot just sit down and just relay on what you've learned. But if you don't keep innovating yourself, it's very hard to stay on top of the times. And that's what I really try to bring to the people. And also, on this side, what I tell to, I have the final interview when you start working in our company. I always say this to everybody is that, no matter if you are the youngest mechanic or the youngest guy in carbon fiber lamination or the most expert manager in processes, I always tell the people that they will come in a company that it's now a fairly big company. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of processes, but I want everybody to make a difference, to bring their own difference. Of course, they need to understand the company before they can raise their hand and say, okay, I think I could do this better. And I think this message is cool, especially to the younger generations, because they come in and, I can see them, they want to bite a bigger piece of the cake.
So we said invest in learning. So learning is definitely one. Sounds like persistence and tenacity was another one. You said, just you want people that are around you that are persistent, that are going to try and push through. So these are the types of things that I presume that you try and find in the people that you surround yourself with then.
Yeah, I think for sure. And tenacity without knowledge, you're going to be in a dogfight, only, but the other way around. And I think I invite you to come whenever we will be able to open this new production facility. You will be invited, but what you will see is a company that is 50 years old, with a big heritage, but it's a company that is quite young. And what I see is that when somebody comes in and doesn't, want to develop at the speed that the company is developing, they simply kind of pull out themselves. There is a very fast speed in the company, and I think this is what is helping us also in these difficult times to be able to stay on top of things.
Well, no, this was awesome today, speaking with you, Alessandro. I always ask, or this is something I want to try, for people that are in your area, can you give us what you would consider your favorite ride area? Like, what is your favorite trail or ride that you do around where you live when you go riding? Road?
Yeah, well, first I invite everybody to come to Bassano because it's really starting to become quite a big epicenter for cycling, having so many bike companies, apparel companies, everything related to sports and cycling. So I invite everybody to come to Bassano because the riding is super good. My favorite riding would be, do you want a name like that somebody can check out on Strava?
I think I want to give people, someone can go on Strava and say, okay, let's go see this.
I love this climb that is called Fozza, that was done at the Giro d'Italia, I think 4 or 5 years ago. It's, I think, a F-O-Z-A with one Z. Yeah.
F-O-Z-A, okay. And what are we talking, like 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers?
It's 10, 12% for 13 Ks, 13, 14, but don't get scared. I'm a big guy. I'm almost 90 kg and I can do it. So I think everybody can do it if I do it. I think that would definitely be one of my favorite ones. But there's a ton of riding, also mountain biking. Sunday I was riding my enduro e-bike, and there's so much to do around here. We have a big mountain called Monte Grappa, where the Giro d'Italia is going to have the penultimate stage next year. And it's 1,750 meters of altitude. So you can climb almost 1,600 meters up to that mountain. And then if you ride south towards the sea, in 50 kilometers, you are in Venice at the sea. So it's a pretty sick place for riding.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sandro. It was great speaking. you want to just let people know if they want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
I don't know. I think LinkedIn is the easiest one. Alessandro Basso is my profile. And I invite everybody to come and visit us. There's going to be some big news in Bassano coming up for the spring season. So that's going to make things even easier for all of our fans to come and know more about both brands. But I cannot say more at the moment.
Okay, keeping people in suspense. Well, thank you, Alessandro. It was great
Thank you
speaking
so
today.
much. Bye-bye.